Hey guys, welcome back to more videos, and today I wanted to do another top 10 video. It's actually been, actually the last time I did a top 10 video was last year, so it's been quite a while since I've done a top 10 video. Of course, the last top 10 video I did was top 10 best horror movie sequels, and figured this time to talk about the top 10 worst horror movie sequels ever made, in my opinion. Um, like I said, this is my opinion. So if you're a fan of these sequels and you like these sequels, that's cool. This is my opinion. All I ask is not to be a jerk about it in the comments. So yeah. So let's get started with number 10. Uh, in a way, it's sort of a sequel to a sequel. I don't know what to say about. I mean, I guess you could say it's. I don't know what it was. Be part 6, right? No. Yeah, because there's 7 movies. Yeah, it'd be part 6. And yeah, it's sort of weird. Leprechaun, Back to the Hood. See, I don't know if I should call this a sequel to a sequel or a just general sequel, because Leprechaun Back to the Hood, obviously it's saying two as a sequel to Leprechaun in the Hood. As you guys know, well, actually, I don't know if you guys, I did reviews for these movies in the past, but they were only up for a short period of time. Actually, maybe a few months. Back when I did my older set of reviews on Leprechaun movies. I'm only a fan of the series up to part 3. Part 2 is actually my favorite. I had a lot of fun with part 3. But 4, and then In the Hood, Back to the Hood, and Leprechaun Origins, they're all crappy to me. Leprechaun Back to the Hood, though, is definitely the worst one. Because, Leprechaun 4 is terrible. It's a piece of trash, piece of garbage. I hate Leprechaun 4. But still, it had some decent practical effects. It had some, decent bits of humor in it. But for the most part, I mean, the movie sucked. I just didn't like Leprechaun 4. It had some humor here and there, but and some practical effects, but besides that, nothing else really much. It was a crappy movie. Leprechaun in the Hood, it's still crap. Just not a lot going for the movie. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Leprechaun in the Hood. Just these ideas of taking Leprechaun. Now, granted, taking Leprechaun into Las Vegas, in my opinion, was a fun idea. When you're going too far is when you're putting them in outer space and you're putting them in the hood and that new freaking, I don't know what you say, reboot of Leprechaun Origins, or you could say it's prequel, I guess, or I don't know. I don't really know how to describe that movie. I mean, I guess it's another one of those movies where I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of a prequel or a spin-off. You could say whatever you want. I think it's a prequel. Honestly, I think it talks about the beginning. Or no, not even that. It might be even just a spin-off. But Leprechaun Origins, in my opinion, was just cheesy. I didn't like it. It was a crappy movie. It was boring, and it wasn't interesting at all. And yeah, very, very boring film, Leprechaun Origins. But Leprechaun in the Hood, I didn't like the idea, and there wasn't really likable characters in it, and I didn't really care for the movie that much. Leprechaun Back to the Hood is even worse than In the Hood, because this movie is super, super low budget, and you got some very, very terrible CGI in the movie. Now, you have Warwick Davis coming back to do this movie. Even the performance of Warwick Davis in this movie wasn't that good. It was still, granted, I will say still about In the Hood and Back to the Hood. They both brought a darker, more sinister Leprechaun to the franchise. Because before In the Hood and Back to the Hood, it was more of a jokester sort of Leprechaun who was always saying jokes, stuff like that, and having fun and stuff. But this Leprechaun still says some jokes, still says some stuff, but he's more down to just killing these people. More of a serious Leprechaun. Just he'll say a one-liner or say something like that, and then he'll kill a person. Not just 4 or 5 one-liners and then kill the person having fun and stuff like that. This was more of just like he says one-liners, like one-liner, and just kills them. Or sometimes he just kills them. So I can say that that's the one thing I thought was okay about the movie was they brought a darker and more sinister Leprechaun to the franchise. But besides that, the freaking movie sucks. The movie is low budget. The movie is cheesy beyond freaking cheesy. The movie is long. It feels like it's a long movie. Let's see now. It's 87 minutes. Why is an 87-minute movie feel like a freaking 3-hour movie? It feels long. You know, it got to the point where I was getting very, very bored with the movie. It is very boring. It's very low budget. It's very uninteresting. Terrible, terrible CGI. Even the practical effects weren't that good. Most time they just cut away from practical effects, or it was like, you know, the camera would be like putting away from the practical effects. Sometimes you didn't even see the practical effects. It was just like, you know, hidden. You didn't see it, or the camera was over here. You didn't see it. Sometimes you did, but not all the time. You know, practical effects really weren't that much to, you know, appreciate. There weren't really hardly any practical effects in the movie. The soundtrack I didn't like. The songs they picked, I don't know. I just didn't like them. The cast, I didn't care for. I didn't care for this whole idea. I didn't like the idea of them just taking Leprechaun and put him in different places, like outer space, in the hood, and you know, Las Vegas was fun to a certain degree. That was, in my opinion, that kept it in the limit of being okay. This is a fun idea. 4, outer space, cheesy looking CGI. You know, it's like freaking like 90s computer graphics, like very, very bad CGI in that movie. It looks very, very bad. And a cheesy looking atmosphere. The sets look fake. It's a crappy movie. And just I hate how they took Leprechaun and just keep putting him in different places. Like, oh, from Las Vegas to outer space, and outer space to the hood. And then you got a sequel, Back to the Hood. It was just, this movie's a lot worse than the first Leprechaun in the Hood. Just, like I said, very cheesy, very uninteresting. And even, like, the design of the case, I don't like. Looks cheesy. Look at the side of this, man. What the freak is that? Looks like one of them low-budget, you know, $2, $3 movies. You know, the way that the case is even designed looks cheap. Looks freaking cheap and cheesy. Yeah, very, very bad movie. Leprechaun Back to the Hood. So number 9, well, that was number 10. Number 9 will be The Final Destination, which it's supposed to be the final one in the series, which in a way it is, because 5 is a prequel. This is worse than 5. This is worse than 3. I know a lot of people hate 3. 3 to me is barely watchable. It's barely decent. There's a few things I like about it, mainly a time waster. But this is not a time waster. This is freaking boring. This has some cartoony graphics to it that look like they're done in a freaking PS2 game. Very, very bad 3D effects to it. Things going to the camera and CGI and stuff. Throughout the entire movie, this freaking DVD. Actually, these were the wrong 3D glasses. These came with Final Destination 3 when I bought it, and these were in there. But you know, since they were to the wrong movie, I decided to put it in here. The movie's not in 3D at all, but these glasses were in Part 3's case. And of course, these are to the Final Destination, The Final Destination. So, you know, decided to put these in the DVD case because these are, you know, to this movie. So put these back in there. Gosh, dang, get in there, man. Come on. There we go. Wouldn't get in there. The Final Destination disc is just gray. I remember back when I did a rant on this, I think I sneezed on the disc, which I might do again if I review this movie again. But I think in the past I sneezed on the disc. That's how bad I hate this movie. I sneezed on the freaking disc. And I threw it across the room, and I think I got it again. I threw it to the ground. Very, 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 very good rant. At least I thought it was a good rant. It was a funny rant. I just throwing the movie everywhere. But, you know, The Final Destination's a crappy sequel. Very, very cheesy graphics. Just, yeah. Also boring. And also just cliche. I mean, by this time, the whole formula for this franchise was getting old. You know, because you knew exactly what was going to happen. These people are all going to die off. They're all going to die. And you already know that. And what happens, that actually happens. And that happens in part 5 as well. So the entire series, I mean, 1 and 2 did it in a very good way. 3, eh. 3's eh. 4 started getting old. 5 getting really old because the same stuff. The same freaking stuff. So yeah, number 9 is The Final Destination. Crappy movie. And then number 8 is Seed of Chucky. Now, I know there are fans of this movie. This movie does have, you know, a decent following. I know a lot of people that, you know, like this movie, think it's fun, think it's entertaining. That's cool. That's totally fine. But in my opinion, this is the freaking worst movie in the franchise. It's worse than Curse of Chucky. Curse of Chucky, in my opinion, is okay. I don't hate Curse of Chucky. I think it's okay. This is even worse than Curse of Chucky. Like, Curse of Chucky was alright, but this is worse. This is just like 1,000 times worse than Curse of Chucky, in my opinion. Because the jokes killed the movie. These jokes were not funny. In my opinion, they were just way too over the top. And you're making Chucky masturbate? Chucky, the killer doll, masturbating in the movie. And it's supposed to be funny. And it's not. I'm like, are you serious? You're really gonna put that in the freaking movie? And the whole idea of the whole, you know, son of Chucky I didn't care for. And you know, just you also have Jennifer Tilly playing herself. And then you've also got Redman in there. And then, like, I will say so, that had some decent kills. Decent makeup effects and decent kills. It had that. Besides that, nothing else. Well, I mean, I could say also it was, you know, shot, you know, okay. It wasn't really shot, you know, all, you know, bland or, you know, bland the way it was shot. No, it was actually shot kind of well. The score, I always thought was okay. It was decent. But besides that, the cast was unlikable. I didn't care for Jennifer Tilly playing herself. I didn't care for Glenn, this whole character named Glenn that gets introduced. I don't care for this character. You know, I just didn't care for it. I didn't care for the idea of the movie. And I just didn't care for the jokes. They weren't funny. You know, and it was just getting to the point where it was like, you know, and then you got Chucky having to go cold turkey from killing people, and then they're trying to make that funny, and it wasn't funny at all, and just a lot of bad jokes in the movie. The jokes freaking, in my opinion, just made the movie totally crap, total crap. Just in my opinion, the jokes would just ruin the movie, because it was just way too much of the humor. Bride of Chucky, in my opinion, it was funny. The jokes in Bride of Chucky were written well. And they were actually funny to me and entertaining. And it was more contained. And Bride of Chucky, it was more of a, you know, it had a lot of humor to it, but it was more contained. They didn't go over the top. Here, they go way too over the top with the humor. It just was not funny. So yeah, Seed of Chucky, in my opinion, is one of the worst sequels I've ever seen because it's just not funny. You know, and it's just, in my opinion, has a very unlikable cast. The acting wasn't really that great. Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly playing Tiffany did a good job. Those two did a good job. The rest of the cast, I didn't really care for. I didn't care for it. The rest of the cast. And just, yeah, I mean, that's all I gotta say about Seed of Chucky is that I didn't care for some of the ideas. I didn't care for the main plot of Glenn going to find his mother and dad, and then his dad trying to teach him how to be a killer. I didn't care for this plot. So, Seed of Chucky, just over the top with the humor. Just over the top. Way too over the top with the humor. So yeah, number 8 is Seed of Chucky. Number 7 is a very crappy movie. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. For a while, I didn't see this movie. Many people were telling me it was crap. I was like, I want to give it a look. I really enjoyed the original Blair Witch Project. Really liked it. A lot of people were telling me, oh, it's not what you think, Nate. It's crappy. And I was like, but, I like the original Blair Witch Project. I'm a fan of it. Why don't I go see the sequel? I seen the sequel. Bought it for this DVD. I bought this DVD. Watched it for the first time. The movie, first of all, they got a director that only shot documentaries. And he comes in, and there's just nothing to the way it's shot. It's shot like a generic, cheap sequel. And the ideas were freaking stupid. The movie is just totally stupid. Like, all these problems equal up to the movie being the total of this movie being stupid. Because it is. It's extremely stupid. All these problems, stupid ideas, stupid cast, bad acting, atmosphere was nothing. It was mediocre. It was laughable. And altogether just equal up to it being a very stupid movie. Very stupid movie. So yeah, Blair Witch 2, or Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. And by the way, many people have mentioned this. There's no Book of Shadows in this movie. Why do they call it Book of Shadows? It's a good title. But make a point. Don't make it pointless. Don't just put it on there, whatever. No, man. Just if you're gonna put that title in there, have a Book of Shadows in there, or somewhere in the plot. Don't even mention the name or the words Book of Shadows. They don't even mention those words in the movie. And also, I would say this though. This is a cool DVD though because you get one side which is the soundtrack, and you get one side which is the movie. Sorry, excuse me, freaking nose is clogged up. The only good thing about this movie is the soundtrack. I would say there are some decent songs in the movie. It was a different soundtrack. That's what the composer was going for, a different sort of sounding soundtrack. A soundtrack that you never heard before. And the score was, different. And I enjoyed the score. But there's nothing really else much. There's not much else to the movie. I mean, it's just a very mediocre, laughable sequel. So yeah, number 7, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Number 6 is a movie that I did a rant on a couple months back. The Rage Carrie 2, which I went into more detail on this movie in that review. If you want to see more detail on the Rage Carrie 2, I did a review for it. And the bottom line of this movie is that the movie is uninteresting. Once again, boring sequel. And there's nothing to the way that it's made. And it copies a lot of the original. It's pretty much a crappy remake of the original, really. I mean, you got a lot of stuff that's the same as the original. A girl being tortured, being bullied at school, and then she finally snaps and goes crazy and kills people in the movie. And you got a little bit of different things there, but the gist of the plot was pretty much the same. Pretty much. This even comes with like a booklet. And then it also has double-sided disc. I'm like, what the freak? Why does it come with the booklet? Why does it come with all these features? It comes with a commentary, alternate ending, additional scenes, and also it says the collectible booklet here. The movie is really boring too. It's very, very boring and uninteresting and lackluster. So yeah, The Rage Carrie 2, lackluster, terrible, awful sequel. Then we got Saw, the final chapter. I used to hate Saw 5 with a passion, a strong passion. I used to hate Saw 5 to death. I used to rant on that movie a lot. When I first joined YouTube, some of the first movie reviews I did were, Puppet Master and Saw, as well as the Friday the 13th franchise. But I used to rant on Saw 5 a lot, and it still sucks. It's still a piece of crap sequel. But Saw 7, or Saw the Final Chapter, or Saw 3D, whatever you want to call it, because there's like freaking a million titles for the movie. Saw Final Chapter, Saw 7, Saw 3D. I don't care. Saw Final Chapter, whatever. Because you watch the movie, it says Saw 3D. You know, some people call it Saw 7, and on DVD it says Saw the Final Chapter. And same problems with, you know, The Final Destination. A lot of cartoony CGI in the movie. Lots of it. 3D CGI to the camera. I guess 2010 must have been a popular year for 3D. Because you have Resident Evil Afterlife, which was crap. Terrible CGI. This movie, crap. That movie, The Final Destination, crap. Around 2009, you got the My Bloody Valentine remake, which wasn't terrible. It wasn't awful. I'll say that. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't totally bad. But it's still, in my opinion, it was just a time waster. It was decent. It was okay. I didn't really enjoy the movie. It was kind of boring when I was watching it. That's one problem with that movie, is that the pace is very slow. But it's not as bad as these movies, but it has another problem that's sort of, you know, it has, you know, a similar problem with the 3D CGI effects. It look like crap. And also just some of the ideas, some of the traps I didn't care for. You know, you got like maybe 2 or 3 traps that were good. Or, yeah, maybe 2 or 3. You know, the one where the girl has like a fishing hook in her stomach was pretty gruesome. It was freaking messed up. The beginning of the movie, that trap, the saw blade, like saws and cuts a girl in half. That was a brutal death scene. And the one where the dude's in the car and he has to peel the skin off his back, and then when he gets to the pedal, you know, he puts his foot on the gas pedal, and the freaking tire crushes a girl's face, hits a dude, you know, through a door and stuff like that. And then the car explodes. That was a decent death scene. The rest of them sucked. There's one where the dude gets hung, you know, pretty much gets hung. This one girl gets pretty much pipes in her eyes and her mouth. And this one girl gets burned in the furnace. And I think that's it. You also got one girl who pushes this dude in a big bunch of fans, CGI fans, and CGI blood stuff comes up, and, you know, not even practical. Hardly any practical effects in the movie. Most of it's CGI. CGI blood. A freaking stupid CGI suit with a freaking huge spike on a freaking, like, motor. Or a huge spike built on this device, and it flies towards this girl, and her whole body explodes in CGI. Some practical effects, but most of it, the blood, is of the CGI. And a CGI spike and the CGI device looked fake. Very, very fake looking. And the atmosphere, that's one of the things about Saw movies, they have atmosphere to them. This movie doesn't have atmosphere. You know, it has your typical look, your cliche, your bland look, no look to it, not even the way it's shot. You know, also, the Saw movies known for the camera work. This has no good camera work in it. It sucks. So, Saw 7, or Saw the Final Chapter, I'll just call it Saw the Final Chapter, freaking sucks. So yeah, freaking Saw the Final Chapter freaking sucks. This is another movie I reviewed before as well. I did it as part of a trilogy review. And it's Hostel Part 2. Once again, if you want to see more details, you know, on Hostel Part 2, I did a review for it, so there are more details over there in that review. But Hostel Part 2, once again, don't want to repeat myself too much, because during that review I repeated myself like 16 times. But I'll just say it once: this movie copied the original way too much. And when it wasn't copying it, it was making these brand new, you know, behind the scenes, go deeper into details, the background of Hostel 1, you know, seeing how stuff worked. And it just, in my opinion, wasn't interesting. And it was very boring in the way it's shot. And you know what, Eli Roth's original intention was to make this movie, was to make Hostel Part 2 better than the original. To improve the problems. No, this movie's freaking worse than the original. You know, some people actually enjoy it. There's actually a fan base. Some people think it's, well, not a fan base, but some people think it's pretty decent. Some people think it's, you know, entertaining. I don't. I think it's a very crappy, lackluster movie that is total garbage. But yeah, Hostel Part 2, terrible sequel. I don't over space over here, but this movie I reviewed a long time ago. Probably one of my most popular reviews or rants. Texas Massacre: Next Generation. Yeah, I did a mega rant. I think I did a mega rant on this movie because it's that bad. I mean, it's just terrible. It's so bad that Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey didn't want it to get released. They told the studios, like, hang on, wait a few months before, just don't release the movie. And also the studio didn't want it to be released. The studio pushed it back to like 97, and the original release date was 94. So even the studio was like, this movie's really bad, push it back a few years. So they pushed it back a few years, and thus it got released in 1997, like, a handful of theaters or something like that, or a few theaters here and there, and didn't make any money at all, and just crappy movie. I think they actually even went to direct-to-video, so it went to very few theaters and just went, direct-to-video. It's just not as raw, not as scary. It's a very confusing movie, doesn't make sense most of the time. And, just garbage, movie that, honestly, the only reason why I have it is because part of the Texas Massacre collection. That's the only reason why I have this movie. For the, Texas Massacre collection, and that's it. If it wasn't for that, then I would just break the movie. I break it, like, right now, but I break it, and but it's part of the collection, and it's actually kind of hard to find this movie because I've only seen this one place so far. I'm not really finding it anywhere else, so, kind of a hard DVD to find, so I don't want to break it. But, if it wasn't in the collection, though, honestly, even though it's hard to find, I would still break it, probably. But, since it's in the collection of my favorite horror movie series of all time, then it shall remain over there and not get destroyed. But, want to break it so bad, want to smash this movie into a million pieces, but, for the sake of the collection, I'll, not break it. So, yeah. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: Next Generation is a very crappy movie and garbage sequel. So we got that. We got two more movies. We got another one that actually, one of them I haven't reviewed yet. One of them I have. I reviewed this movie in the past, Silent Hill Revelation. Just a boring, lackluster, cheesy, once again bad 3D effects sequel that is mostly, hated. I know there's a few people that like it probably, but because I know there's a fan of every movie. There's at least one fan of every movie. But it in my opinion, just the original one, in my opinion, had so much more going for it. This one is a rushed, bad, terrible CGI, lackluster, terrible story, terrible ideas, terrible everything. Honestly, freaking awful sequel. So yeah, Silent Hill Revelation, freaking terrible. And this one is part of the Prophecy and Hellraiser pack, which comes with Hellraiser 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it comes with Prophecy 1 through 5. I believe, yeah, 1 through 5. Hellseeker sucks. Inferno sucks. And also Hellworld sucks as well. They're all, not all, but, Hellraiser Bloodline was the last good movie, in my opinion. Bloodline, in my opinion, was a fun, decent sequel. Inferno, and from Inferno on, though, the series sucks. But even though I haven't seen Hellraiser Revelations yet, I've seen like a few minutes of it. But Hellraiser Deader, so far, is my least favorite of the Hellraiser movies. Because, yes, Hellraiser is barely in, trying to get my finger right there, Hellseeker, he's barely in that movie, he's barely in this movie, and he's barely in Hellworld. But in Deader, I think he honestly gets maybe 7 minutes of screen time total. 7 minutes of screen time total and an hour-long movie, or like an hour and 30-minute long movie. You give them 7 minutes total. 7 minutes of screen time? Really? This is one of those instances where I can actually throw the freaking case in the ground and don't worry about it because it's part of the collection. I mean, it's part of that DVD pack, but I can buy it at like Kmart for, like $1 or no, $3. They actually got the Hellraiser movies in like a bin for $3. You can get them from there. So whatever. But yeah, Hellraiser Deader is a freaking terrible movie. Really, really boring. Really, really uninteresting. Doesn't ever, and this is a common problem, people have talked about, where it doesn't even feel like a freaking Hellraiser movie. It doesn't. Hellseeker doesn't as well, and Inferno doesn't. From Inferno on, doesn't feel like Hellraiser movies anymore. It feels like a total different franchise. In my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, it just feels like a total different franchise from Inferno on. It doesn't feel like Hellraiser anymore. So Deader is boring. Hardly any Pinhead in the movie. Hardly any Cenobites in general. The whole Deaders idea, I didn't care for. These people that committed suicide, they get brought back to life. I didn't care for this. How the freak is Hellraiser and that tied together? Oh, I guess very loosely, because I guess Hellraiser was really mad about them coming back to life. So what the freak? I don't get it. And at the end of the movie, the cult's just there, and Pinhead just kills them off. The whole movie, the cult is there, and Pinhead just kills them off. Like they're nothing. Just kills them off. Not even a fight, just kills them all off. So the Deaders were kind of pointless because they don't do anything. All they do is, this girl tracking down clues of all they do is just I guess they need this girl for a sacrifice, but that's pretty much all they do. They pretty much just are people who revive people from the dead, from killing themselves. So it doesn't tie in with Hellraiser. It does, I guess, loosely, but, not a good plot. So yeah, that was my top 10 worst sequels of all time, worst horror movie sequels of all time. So, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye, guys.